Okay, so hey everybody, this is information is going to be, these are the types of problems you need to know to be able to do the Conic sections quiz in our virtual world. Again, that will be this Friday, what's today, the 28th, so 29th, 30th, 1st, 2nd, so like Friday the 2nd. Make sure you can do this stuff. Here we go. Okay, so first thing for data, again, quiz number 2, conics. Most obvious thing, you need to know what the 4 of them are. So what are they, those 4? So circle, ellipse, and hyperbola, and parabola. So not only do you need to know all those things, you need to know what their equations look like, you need to know how to be able to manipulate them, graph them, all of those things, but at the most basics, you need to know that there's 4 of them, be able to tell what they look like. Okay. So if I told you something like this, if I told you that there's a vertex for an ellipse, there's a vertex for an ellipse at, say, let's go 6, 0, the vertex at 6, 0, and then there was it was centered at the origin, and there was a focus, foci at 4, 0, and I said, hey, tell me what a covertex is. Tell me what a covertex is. Hopefully you could be able to do that, and basically you'd set up something like this. You know that the foci squared, right, is equal to the vertex squared minus the covertex squared in terms of those distances. Well, if the focal distance from the origin goes to 4, 0, then that must be 16, because 4 squared is 16. Vertex squared, that distance is 6, so 36 minus CV squared. And then, well, 16 is equal to 36 minus what? Well, that must equal 20. So if I square root 20, that will give me an approximation of, pull out my handy dandy little calculator here, and put it on there so you guys can see it too. 20 raised to the 1/2 power. That's another way you can do square roots. So I got 4.47, and you can go ahead and treat that as approximately 4.5. So that means I should have a covertice at 0, 4.5 and 0, negative 4.5, because if the vertex is on the x-axis, the covertice must be on the y-axis. Good deal? So be able to do something like that, and please don't just do this one because I wrote this one right here, but be able to follow through the question that it's asked and answer that question. Okay, so I've got some pictures of them, so like this. So what happens if I slice my conic just like this? What's the shape that is formed when I slice it at that kind of an angle? You should be able to say, hey, Mr. Bells, that is definitely an ellipse. And you should be able to know that for all of those ones, okay? Then I'm going to give you equations like this stuff. Maybe I'm going to give x plus 6, quantity squared over 25, plus y minus 3 squared over 81 equals 1, and give it something like that. And I'm going to say, hey, what is this? And hopefully you're going to say an ellipse. And if I said, hey, what's the center? You would say that it's at negative 6, 3. And I would say, hey, is this wider or is it taller? And you would say, hey, it's taller because the bigger number goes underneath the y variable. And if I said, hey, how long is the major axis? You would say the major axis is 18 because I have to go the square root of this, which is 9. So I go 9 up and 9 down from wherever the center is, and that's where the major axis is. So I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions about this, and you should be able to tell me yes or no, this is true, this is false, or hey, I can't tell what this is. Okay? Is that good? Okay. So there's questions like that, and those go on lots of different equations. So I'm going to ask a whole bunch of true or false or cannot be determined on ellipses and hyperbolas and parabolas and all of those things. So all of your choices are those kind of options, but you really need to know those kind of things. So like if I said this, x minus 3 equals y plus 2 quantity squared minus 16. I said, hey, what shape is that? You got to know that it's a parabola. And if I said, hey, where's the center? Well, the center is actually, or the vertex in this case, the vertex is actually at negative 13 comma negative 2. And you're like, where the heck did that come from? Well, the only way I can get this in vertex form is to move that thing over to here. So if I add 3 to that constant, that gives me the negative 13. That's the x-coordinate. And the y-coordinate's always the opposite of that number, so that's negative 2. So being able to adjust equations to get them to work the way they do, okay? You have to be able to do the distance formula and the midpoint formula. And how do those play a role? Well, if I give you something like this, negative 8 comma 2, and another point, 4 comma 6, and I say these are the endpoints of the diameter of a circle, find the center of the circle, you should be able to do that. Find the radius of the circle, you should be able to do that. Find an equation of the circle, you should be able to do that. So all of those things you need to be able to do, okay? So what else do we have? Well, I need to know about Pizza Palace. All of you should have done that application. And you need to be able to tell me all about it. Tell me the math behind it. Tell me exactly what's going on with the situation. Why did we get rid of Tony? Why did we keep Tony? Why did we want to move our business? What's going on with this thing? So anything that you can tell me about Pizza Palace and the fact that we used it as an application for equations of circles, whether or not we could deliver pizza to people that lived in our town based on where my business was located at, all those kind of things you're just going to talk about to me. So, just be ready for that. That should be easy. Just know your response that you're going to put in for that. Okay, then we're going to have problems like this. If I have x squared plus 4y squared minus 10x plus 8y minus 30, something like that, equals 0. So I have this thing, and I go, hey, what is this shape? You should be able to just look at this and know that this is an ellipse, okay? But if I wanted to know what the center of the ellipse was, what is the center of the ellipse? That's something much different. I got to do some work for that. So if I want to know what the center is, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go, hey, x squared minus 10x, those go together. 4y squared plus 8y, those go together. The 30 goes on the other side, just like that. I'm going to do half my linear term. Half of my negative 10 is negative 5, so I put in my little square box. And I square it, so that's plus 25. And if I do 25 here, I got to do 25 over here. Just doing this, completing the square process, right? This one's a little bit more detailed. I got to be able to factor that 4 out first. Y squared plus 2y. And then half my linear term, half of 2 is 1. Put in my little square box, square it, so that's plus 1. But that 1 is in these parentheses, and that 1 is being multiplied by this 4. So I really added 4 to this side of the equation, so I have to add 4 to the other side, so plus 4. So now I have this. I have x minus 5 quantity squared plus 4 times y plus 1 quantity squared equals, and over here I got 25, 30, 55, 59. And if I want it to look like an ellipse, then I divide by 59 on both sides to get 1 over there. So I'm left with x minus 5 quantity squared over 59 plus 4 times y plus 1 squared over 59 equals 1. And now I know that's an ellipse because 1/59 and 4/59 are two different numbers. There's a positive sign here and a positive sign here, so that means they're both positive. And they're both squared, so I have an ellipse. What's the center of my ellipse? The center of my ellipse, center, is at 5, comma, -1. Okay, and if I ask, is it wider or is it taller? Is it wider or is it taller? Well, I take the square root of the denominators or square root of the coefficients. In this case, the square root of 59. I can do that right now. So on, and I got 59 raised to the 0.5 power. Sorry, my batteries just died on me on that calculator. So let's pull another one up here. Let's use this one. Turn that on. Ooh, a lot of stuff. 59 raised to the 0.5 power. So I get 7.68. So I'm going to go plus or minus 7.68 to get the edges of my horizontal change for my ellipse. But I have to do the other one, 4 divided by 59, 4/59, that's that number. Enter. And I'm going to take, sorry, I probably should do that the other way. Do 59 divided by 4. I'm technically reducing this, so that becomes 1 over 14.75. So flip your fraction for that one. So we're just reducing 4/59 to 1 over 14.75. And now I raise that to the half power. I get 3.84. And that's how far up and down I'm going to go. So if my question was, hey, which one of these things is it wider or taller? We know, because that number is bigger, 59, compared to 14.75 once I reduce this, that it's definitely going to be wider than it is tall. Okay? So there's also going to be another problem or two based on that. There's going to be ones where I'll put an equation like this, x plus 2 squared over, I don't know, 16 minus, or let's do plus, y plus b squared over z equals 1. So I say I have some equation like this, and I go, hey, how do I know that this happens to be centered in quadrant 4, What would I have to know? Would I need to know something about b or something about z to get it centered in quadrant 4? Well, first off, you guys probably need to know this. The quadrants are like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. That might be a basic question. So I know that the x of -2 takes me this way. So if I got to get in quadrant 4, then the answer is none of the above. There's nothing that b can do to get me to quadrant 4, and there's nothing that z can do to get me to quadrant 4. So that particular question, nothing that I can get. Okay? Now if I wanted to say in quadrant 3, then all b would have to be as a positive number, because then the opposite of that would take me negative, and it would get me in quadrant 3. If I said I need it to be taller than it is wide, what would I need to know about z? Well, you need to know that z has to be greater than 16. Okay? If I wanted the major axis to be 12 long, if I wanted the major axis to be 12 long, what would z have to be? Well, z would have to be 36 in order for that to work out. So there's going to be some questions that deal with your general understanding of this stuff. And if your understanding is good, you should be able to answer things like that. Okay? And that's pretty much it. So again, know all the graphs, know the equations, know the general shapes of them, and be able to logic through it. I would strongly suggest to have some scrap paper for you to be able to draw pictures on to get to the problems. Okay, I'm out now. Hopefully that was beneficial to you, and you're going to do really, really well.